In the far edge of the galaxy, where stars burn cold and silent stretches forever, there lived many alien races who ruled their own empires. They traded, they fought, they made alliances, and they broke them. Yet in all their stories, there was one name that returned again and again, a name most spoke only in whispers. The name was human. For thousands of years no one had seen them. To most young aliens, humans were nothing but a bedtime story told by parents to make children behave. Don't be cruel, they would warn, or the humans will come for you. But to the elders, to the ones who studied history, the word still carried weight. It was said that humans were not like other species. They were small compared to many giants, weak compared to armored beasts, and yet, wherever they went, they changed the stars. One alien scholar described them long ago. Humans are not the strongest, not the fastest, not the smartest, but they never stop. They rise again and again, even when broken. That is why we fear them. But centuries passed, empires grew bold, and with no proof of humans anywhere, the myth began to fade. Captain Ryler, a young officer of the Kaith Dominion fleet, never believed in humans. To him, they were fairy tales, ghosts to frighten the weak. He was logical, he was trained, and he trusted only in facts. One day, while leading a patrol near the ruins of an abandoned world, his sensors caught something strange, buried deep under the ashes of forgotten cities. His scanners found a shape, not alien, not Kaith, not any design known to the galaxy. It was metal, scarred and silent, but it carried marks that made his blood freeze, symbols carved into the metal's side, symbols that looked like claws or teeth. But older crew members recognized them. They trembled, whispering among themselves. "It is human script," Ryler laughed. "Impossible," he said. "Humans never existed. This is a trick, an ancient design from some lost race." Yet as his crew cleaned the dust, one word became clear, one single word written in a language no alien should know. Human. The crew grew restless. Some wanted to leave at once. They feared the name. But curiosity burned stronger in Ryler. He ordered the ruins scanned and the object lifted aboard. Against the warnings of his crew, the wreck was brought into their hold. That night, strange things began to happen. The ship's lights flickered. Their systems glitched. Alarms rang without cause. At first, Ryler thought it was only old machinery, causing interference, but then a signal came. It was faint, almost too weak to hear. A pulse, slow and steady, like the beat of a heart. It came from the wreck. The engineer said it was impossible. The machine was dead. But the pulse grew stronger, and soon it was not only sound, it became a voice. The language was old, broken, hard to understand, yet the message was clear. "We are watching." Fear spread among the crew. Some demanded the wreck be thrown back into space. Others prayed to their own gods. Ryler tried to stay calm. "It is only static," he told them, "only an echo." But inside, even he felt cold, for no one knew how a silent ruin could speak. Word of the discovery spread quickly. Other ships came to see. Scholars and priests argued. Some declared it a warning from ancient demons. Others said it was proof of the old legends. Whole star systems began, whispering the same question. Could humans be real? Ryler sent the wreck to the Dominion High Command. They studied it, but the results only deepened the mystery. The metal was stronger than anything known. The symbols matched no database except for forbidden records kept locked away. The voice repeated its message once every cycle. Always the same words. "We are watching." The High Command silenced the news. They called it superstition, a trick from rebels. They ordered all talk of humans forbidden. Anyone caught speaking of the wreck was punished. Yet the whispers only grew louder, for fear cannot be locked away. Across the galaxy, in markets and in war councils, the old myth returned. Soldiers spoke of the ghost race. Merchants swore they saw shadows following their fleets. Priests warned of judgment. And always the name came back. Human. One night, as Captain Ryler slept aboard his ship, he dreamed. In his dream, he saw warships, dark and vast, cutting through. Space like blades, he heard drums, slow and heavy, and voices calling in the ancient tongue. When he awoke, his hands were shaking, and then the ship's alarms blared. A signal had arrived. Not static, not random, but clear. Powerful enough to reach across stars. It carried no threats, no demands, only a message in the same old human tongue. We are returning. The bridge fell silent. Crew members stared at each other. Some cried, others froze in fear. Ryler's heart pounded as he whispered the words he once denied. Humans, he said. Humans are real. Dark space stretched endless and silent. Stars flickered like distant candles. But on the border of the Kaith Dominion, silence was about to break. The rebel fleet had been cornered. Kaith warships surrounded them, ready to strike. Captain Ryler watched from his command chair, calm but restless. Victory seemed close. The rebels had nowhere to run. Now the Dominion would crush them and prove its strength, but then the shadows appeared. At first they were only faint signals on the scanner, dots with no identification, moving too fast, too precise. More rebels? One officer asked. Ryler frowned. No ship could move like that, not even Dominion's best, and then they saw them. Out of the black came shapes. Warships unlike any ever built. They were sharp, dark, and silent. No bright lights, no banners, no sound. They moved like hunters, gliding without effort. Their hulls swallowed the starlight. As if the void itself wrapped around them, panic whispered across the bridge. "What are they?" someone asked. Another officer gasped. "Ghost ships." The rebel fleet noticed too. Their signals turned chaotic. Some ships tried to retreat. Others surrendered without firing a shot. Even enemies were afraid, for none recognized these new arrivals. The strange ships did not fire at once. They only circled, silent predators studying their prey. Their movements were perfect, not a single error. Ryler felt cold. It was like they had waited for this very moment. The first transmission came. A sound filled the comms. It was not Kaith, not Rebel, not any alien tongue. It was older, heavier. A human voice, one word, return. The bridge froze. Officers looked at each other in disbelief. Some shook their heads, refusing to accept it. But Ryler knew the sound. It matched the recordings from the wreck he had found. His chest tightened. This was no accident, no myth. The ships moved closer, their size now clear. Each one was massive, larger than a Dominion dreadnought. Weapons lined their sides, not glowing. Not charging, just waiting. Rebel and Dominion alike hesitated. Nobody fired, nobody wanted to provoke them. It was as if the galaxy itself held its breath. Then, without warning, one of the rebel cruisers panicked. It fired its cannons at the shadow ships. Bright energy beams tore across the void. The shadows answered. A single blast erupted from the dark warship. Not bright like alien weapons, but silent and sharp. The rebel cruiser vanished, cut in half with one strike. No explosion, no fire, only silence, and then nothing. Fear swept through the fleets. Soldiers whispered. Legends. The humans. The humans have returned. Ryler tried to keep order. He shouted commands, but even his officers trembled. For every story they had ignored, every warning they had mocked, now stood before them, alive. The shadow fleet drifted closer. One ship passed directly above Ryler's cruiser. Its size blotted out the stars. As it moved, his scanners overloaded. Systems failed. Alarms screamed. Yet the alien ship still floated untouched, watching. Another message came. This time longer. The human voice was slow, steady, not angry, but heavy with promise. Your time is over. Our time has returned. The Dominion fleet wavered. Some commanders called for retreat. Others demanded attack. But none moved. They knew deep inside. No weapon they had could stop these ships. The rebels, too, fell silent, their war forgotten in the face of something greater. The Kaithan rebels both looked to Ryler, waiting for his command, but he had none. He could only stare at the dark giants in the sky. Then, without warning, the human ships shifted. They formed a line, blocking the path of both fleets. Weapons, lit faintly. Not fire, but a warning. And then one of the human ships broke silence again. This time the words were simple, chilling. Kneel or burn, gasps filled the Dominion bridge. Some cried, some cursed, others froze. But Ryler could only whisper. His voice was dry, his throat tight. "They are real," he said. "The legends are real." The shadows waited, silent, patient. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy trembled under the forgotten name, humans. The silence of the standoff could not last forever. The Shadow Fleet had given its warning, and now the galaxy would learn the cost of ignoring it. Captain Ryler sat frozen in his chair. His officers looked to him for orders, but he had none. Before him stretched a wall of human warships, massive and silent. Their black hulls carried no symbols, no flags, only the weight of a forgotten name. For a moment, the stars held their breath. Then a rebel ship, trembling with fear, broke formation. It tried to flee, engines burning bright as it turned away. The humans answered. One of their warships glided forward, slow and precise. Its weapons hummed, then released a beam of light unlike anything seen before. It did not explode. It did not roar. It simply cut, sharp and clean. The fleeing rebel vessel split in half like paper. Both halves drifted apart, glowing faintly before vanishing into silence. The galaxy watched in horror, the Caith fleet and the rebels stopped fighting each other. For the first time in living memory, two enemies stood side by side in fear. It did not matter who was Dominion, who was rebel. All that mattered was the truth. The humans had returned. The alien crews whispered. Steel demons. The ghost race. They never died. Stories long buried rose again. Myths, once dismissed as lies, now stood alive before their eyes. The humans moved without hesitation. Another of their warships turned, targeting a Caith destroyer. The destroyer tried to defend itself, shields raised, weapons firing in desperation. Bright blasts of plasma hit the dark hull, but the human ship did not even slow. Its return strike shattered the destroyer's defenses. Shields collapsed like paper walls. Then, with a single lance of energy, the Caith vessel was gone. No wreck. No flames, only dust. Ryler's heart pounded. He had never felt fear like this. Not from rebels, not from pirates, not even from the great Dominion enemies. This was something else. This was a predator looking at prey. The humans did not destroy everyone. They were careful. They struck one ship, then another. Always leaving survivors to watch, to spread the terror. It was a message, clear and cruel. We are stronger. We are here. We decide who lives. The rebel admiral broke first. He opened a channel, begging for surrender. His voice shook as he spoke. We yield. We submit. Do not destroy us. The humans responded with silence. Their ships drifted closer, massive shadows covering the smaller, alien fleets. Then finally a voice came, deep and steady. Survive but serve. Gasps filled the Caith bridge. Some officers cried out, "They want us as slaves." Others shouted, "Never." But no one moved. The humans had shown what defiance brought, and yet, there was something stranger still. Instead of wiping out the fleets, the humans disabled their weapons. Their beams cut carefully, destroying cannons and engines but leaving life support intact. Ships floated powerless, unable to fight, unable to flee. Then the unthinkable. One of the human warships extended a tractor beam, pulling a rebel cruiser toward it. The rebel crew screamed over open channels, begging for help, but no one dared move. The cruiser vanished into the dark hull of the human vessel, taken alive. The Caith officers looked to Ryler in terror. "Why?" they whispered. "Why take prisoners?" No one had the answer. Hours passed. The human ships did not vanish. They lingered like wolves around wounded prey. Each movement of theirs brought panic. Each silence carried threat. Then, without warning, the humans transmitted again. A single phrase echoed across both fleets. "This is the beginning." And just like that, they were gone. The human warships shifted, engines burning with silent power. One by one, they vanished into faster-than-light jumps. No trace left behind but wreckage and fear. The rebels floated, broken, their weapons gone. The Caith fleet stood scarred, their pride shattered. Ryler's hands trembled as he stared at the empty space where the humans had stood. He knew, deep in his soul, this was not the end. This was only the first strike. Across the galaxy, word spread faster than light. Merchants carried rumors, soldiers whispered in barracks, priests declared omens. Everywhere, the same words were spoken. The humans have returned. Some called them saviors. Some called them monsters. But all agreed on one truth. The galaxy had changed forever, and in the silent halls of Dominion High Command, leaders sat pale and shaking. For the old, warnings written in forbidden texts had proven true. The forgotten race had risen again, and their fire now stretched across the stars. The rebel cruiser had vanished into the dark hull of the human warship. No one knew what became of it. No signals escaped. No screams were heard. Only silence. Weeks passed. The galaxy trembled with questions. Why had the humans taken prisoners? Why had they spared fleets that should have been destroyed? To the Kaith Dominion, this was more terrifying than simple destruction, for death was clear, but purpose was hidden. Captain Ryler could not sleep. Night after night he saw those massive warships in his dreams. He heard their voices cold and steady. He felt the weight of the old word they had spoken: return. Then, one cycle later, an impossible message arrived. It came from the rebel prisoners, a broadcast spilled across the stars, weak at first but growing stronger. It carried images, shaky and unclear yet unmistakable. Aliens sat inside a strange chamber, their eyes wide with fear. Behind them stood humans. Yes, humans. They were not myths, not shadows, not stories. They were real. Their faces were sharp, their eyes cold. Their uniforms black with strange symbols. Some looked like commanders, others like soldiers. All moved with confidence. One of them stepped forward. His voice filled the galaxy, calm yet merciless. You forgot us, but we never forgot you. The words struck like thunder. Civilizations shivered as they heard them. For centuries, aliens had spoken of humans as if they were a legend, a warning. Now the legend stared back at them with living eyes. The broadcast continued. The human captain spoke again. Long ago, you united against us. You feared our rise. You betrayed us. You burned our worlds. You thought we were gone, but we endured, we learned, we prepared. The rebel prisoners trembled as the human captain's gaze swept over them. Some wept openly, others whispered prayers. And then the human declared, "This galaxy is ours by right of survival. You may serve, or you may burn. The choice is yours." The transmission ended, leaving silence heavier than war. Across the stars, reactions divided. Some alien leaders mocked the message, calling it a lie. They said the humans were actors, tools of fear. But others, the older ones who still remembered fragments of history, believed. Their voices shook as they warned, "This is real. The humans have returned for justice." On the Kaith flagship, Ryler stood at the center of debate. Officers argued. Some demanded preparation for war. Others begged for surrender. But Ryler said nothing. He stared only at the frozen image of the human captain. His eyes were not of a monster, not of a god, but of something worse. A survivor who remembered every wound. Soon after, more messages arrived. Alien ships across the galaxy reported encounters. Sometimes humans appeared, destroying military stations. Sometimes they appeared only to disable fleets and vanish. Always they left survivors. Always they left fear. But there was one more twist. Some prisoners were returned. They came, back in small vessels, drifting to the borders of alien space. When rescued, they carried the same story. They had seen the humans up close. They had walked through halls of their warships. Their technology was beyond imagination. Their soldiers trained without rest. Their leaders spoke little but watched everything. And worst of all, the prisoners spoke of human ground troops. They were taller than expected, stronger than any alien warrior, clad in armor that made them shadows of war. They marched in silence. Yet their presence broke courage like glass. One rebel prisoner whispered before dying, "They do not want our death. They want our loyalty. They want us to kneel." The Kaith Dominion panicked. Secret councils formed. Old forbidden records were unlocked. In dusty vaults they found stories of the human wars of the past, a time when humans spread across stars with fire and steel, a time when empires allied to crush them, believing they had won. Now it was clear. They had only bought time. Captain Ryler was summoned before High Command. The chamber was filled with generals, priests, and scholars, all pale, all shaken. They asked him for answers, for strategies. But what could he say? He had seen the warships. He had heard the voice, he knew the truth, none of them wanted to speak. Finally, he said it aloud. "We cannot defeat them." The chamber erupted. Some shouted betrayal. Some cried out in fear. But Ryler continued, his voice steady now. "They do not seek battle. They seek control. They do not want war. They want the galaxy itself. The words settled over the chamber like poison. For once, none could deny it. The humans had spared fleets, spared prisoners, not from mercy, but from design. They wanted servants, they wanted witnesses, they wanted everyone to see their power and break without a fight. And so, across the galaxy, the greatest question spread, whispered in every home, in every barracks, in every council. Should we kneel, or should we burn? Fear now ruled the stars. Every race whispered the same word, a word once thought dead, a word that returned with fire. Humans, the Kaith Dominion, tried to hide the truth. They silenced the broadcasts, erased the prisoner stories. But fear could not be silenced. Fear traveled faster than ships, faster than light, and then came the sieges. It began on the world of Xylar Prime, a city world filled with billions. Its towers stretched to the sky. Its defenses were said to be unbreakable. The Dominion trusted in it as a symbol of strength. But one night, the stars above Xylar grew dark. Human warships appeared, silent and vast. They did not announce themselves. They did not send demands. They simply arrived. The Kaith defenders fired first. 1,000 guns blazed. Energy bolts streaked across the heavens. But the human warships swallowed every strike, shields invisible yet unbroken. The defenders screamed in panic as their weapons overheated. Then, with cold precision, the humans answered. One ship fired a single beam. It struck a defense tower. The tower vanished, cut clean through, no fire, no explosion, only silence. Another beam. Another tower gone. Panic spread through the city. The skies filled with screams, but the humans did not burn Xylar Prime to ash. No, they destroyed its weapons, its shields, its power plants. Piece by piece, they silenced the world. Until billions sat in darkness, powerless, defenseless, the Dominion waited for an invasion. They expected ground troops, slaughter, war, but none came. The humans left Xylar Prime alive. A whole planet left in silence. A warning, news spread like wildfire. Other worlds reported the same fate. Planets once proud, once armed, reduced to shadows of themselves. The humans never spoke, never bargained. They simply appeared, silenced defenses, and vanished. Each time, the same pattern. The galaxy began to tremble. Soldiers refused to fight. Merchants refused to travel. Families fled to hidden moons. In temples and shrines, priests declared judgment. The legends are alive. The ghosts of iron have returned. Captain. Ryler heard the reports with growing dread. He remembered the human words, survive but serve. He now understood. The humans were not waging war. They were breaking spirit. They wanted the galaxy to surrender without a single true battle. On his ship, his officers whispered among themselves. Some argued to fight. Others whispered of joining the humans. One brave officer asked, "Captain, what if we kneel? What if we survive by serving?" Ryler's jaw tightened. He stared into the void. Remembering the eyes of the human commander, he answered with a voice like stone, "If we kneel, we are already dead." Yet doubt spread. More and more alien leaders sent secret messages. Some reached out to the humans, offering supplies, information, even soldiers, and sometimes human fleets spared those who bent the knee. Sometimes they simply vanished without firing a shot. But when betrayal came, it was merciless. The world of Droska swore loyalty to the humans. Its leaders broadcast their surrender, promising obedience for 3 days. The planet was silent, believing itself safe. Then the humans returned. No beams, no soldiers, only silence. When Dominion scouts arrived later, they found Droska empty. Cities stood untouched, towers unbroken, but no life remained. Billions gone, without trace. Not a body, not a scream, only silence. The galaxy shook in terror. Why them? People asked. Why take some as servants and erase others? None knew. Perhaps the humans tested loyalty. Perhaps they punished lies, or perhaps worse, they chose at random. Dominion High Command panicked. They built more fleets. They poured resources into weapons. But the soldiers no longer believed. Whole battalions deserted. Some joined the rebels. Some vanished into deep space, all feared the same shadow. And still the humans came. Every week another world fell silent. Some planets surrendered before a shot was fired. Others fought and were cut apart in hours. All ended the same way. In silence, Ryler knew the truth. He saw the pattern. The humans were not just destroying defenses. They were erasing hope. A galaxy that does not believe it can win will never fight. And the humans understood this better than anyone. One night, as his ship drifted in orbit above a dead world, Ryler stood alone, staring into the stars. He whispered the words no one dared say aloud. They are not conquering us. They are teaching us to obey. And somewhere far beyond his sight in the darkness of human warships, a commander watched. His voice echoed through encrypted transmissions sent to every corner of the fleet. "Oh, silence grows. Soon they will break themselves." The galaxy was breaking. World after world had fallen into silence. Fleets had vanished. Armies had surrendered without firing. Everywhere the same shadow stretched. Humans, but not all, bowed on. The distant moon of Altheris, a secret council gathered. It was the largest gathering of alien leaders in centuries. Races who had once hated each other now sat side by side. Caith generals, rebel commanders, even merchants and pirates, all drawn together by fear. At the center of the chamber burned a single question. Could they resist the humans? Some argued. No, they spoke of vanished planets, of warships too strong, of weapons no shield could stop. They begged for surrender. Better slaves than dust. They cried, but others refused. If we kneel, we lose everything. One rebel leader shouted, "We must fight, or the galaxy will never belong to us again." And so the impossible was attempted. The first true alliance of the galaxy. They pooled ships. Soldiers trained side by side. Weapons were reforged. For the first time in living memory, Caith and rebels saluted under one banner. They believed numbers could win where courage had failed, but doubt lingered. Soldiers whispered. In camps, what if the legends cannot be stopped? Commanders argued over strategies. Fear was a poison in their veins. Yet still they built. The fleet that rose from this alliance was vast, larger than any single race had commanded. Thousands of ships stretched across the void, carriers, dreadnoughts, swarms of fighters. If numbers mattered, the alliance would not lose. Captain Ryler stood among them, his Caith cruiser joined to the new fleet. He watched the others, their banners glowing, their speeches filled with fire. But deep in his chest, a cold truth sat heavy. Numbers mean nothing to hunters. The day of battle came. Scouts had tracked human movements. A dark fleet had been sighted, near the dead system of Corvus. The Alliance saw this as their chance. If they struck fast, if they struck together, perhaps they could cut the shadows down. The Armada gathered at the edge of Corvus. Engines roared, soldiers cheered, the air was thick with forced courage. And then, the stars opened. Human warships appeared, not a few, but many. Each one larger, darker, sharper than the last. They moved not like prey, but like hunters waiting for the first mistake. The Alliance fired first. Thousands of beams lit the void. Missiles streaked, fighters swarmed. For a heartbeat, the darkness was drowned in light. But then the light died. Human ships moved with impossible precision. Their formations were perfect, their weapons answered with surgical strikes. Whole squadrons of fighters vanished in seconds. Carriers fell silent. Dreadnoughts cracked open. Like glass, Ryler shouted orders, his crew fought bravely. But the enemy was everywhere, faster, colder, unstoppable. It was not a battle. It was slaughter. The humans did not charge blindly. They encircled. They herded. Every move of the Alliance. Fleet was predicted, countered, crushed. It was as if the humans had seen the entire plan before it was even made. And then came the voice, a broadcast cut through every channel, calm and merciless. You think unity makes you strong? It makes you slower. It makes you louder. You are. Prey, and prey cannot defeat the hunter. Ships broke formation, some commanders fled, others begged for surrender, but the humans did not stop. Their beams carved through hulls. Their silence pressed like a weight on every heart. Ryler's cruiser shuddered as explosions tore across the fleet. He stared at the battle with wide eyes. Every story he had doubted was alive before him. This was not war. This was a lesson. The Alliance had gambled and lost in less than an hour. Half the fleet was gone. The rest scattered, fleeing into the void. The proud Alliance was broken, its dream of victory shattered. But the humans were not finished. As the survivors limped away, the warships did not chase. Instead, they formed a circle around the wreckage, their weapons glowing faintly. They wanted the galaxy to watch, and watch they did across hidden channels, across desperate transmissions. The sight spread. The greatest fleet ever built had been destroyed like paper. The Alliance had failed. Silence filled the stars once more. On the bridge of his burning cruiser, Ryler gripped the chair with trembling hands. His voice cracked as he whispered to No. 1. We cannot win. They know everything. They are everywhere. Far away, aboard a human flagship, the commander watched, his eyes cold, his voice steady. The galaxy resists. The galaxy falls. Soon they will remember what was taken from us. Soon they will kneel. And in the ashes of Corvus, the legend of humans grew darker still. The galaxy burned in silence, fleets broken, planets dark, hopes shattered. The Alliance that had risen in desperation now lay scattered as ashes among the stars. And yet, the humans did not vanish. They lingered. Their warships prowled the void, like predators appearing without warning, disappearing without trace. To some worlds they brought fire, to others, silence, to a few, strange mercy. Everywhere, one truth spread like blood through water. The legends were alive. On the Caith flagship, Captain Ryler sat alone. He no longer doubted, no longer mocked the myths. He had seen too much, heard too many voices, whisper the same word, humans. But still, one question haunted him. Why? Why return now? Why not destroy everything at once? Why take their time? Why spare some? Erase others? Why demand kneeling? The answer came at last. A transmission shook the galaxy. It was not secret, not hidden. It was sent openly, boldly, as if daring all to listen, across every world, across every fleet, across every council. The voice of a human commander spoke. You think we seek war? No, we seek justice. You think we return for conquest? No, we return for what was stolen. The voice was calm, steady, filled with a weight. No one could deny images filled the screens, ancient battles, old betrayals. Humans standing on ruined worlds as alien fleets burned them. Humans hunted, trapped, nearly erased. You united against us. You betrayed us. You burned our children. And now you will remember. Silence followed, a silence more terrible than fire across the galaxy. Leaders looked at each other in dread. The past they had buried was rising again. On one world, rebels fell to their knees swearing loyalty to humans. On another, priests cried out calling them divine judges. But on most worlds there was only fear. The humans had not come for revenge alone. They had come for memory. They wanted the galaxy to know that legends never die. And then the final battle began. Near the Star of Avalorn, The last strong fleets of the Dominion gathered. The survivors of the Alliance, broken but not yet dead. They swore to fight one more time to prove they still had courage. The humans answered. Their warships appeared, not dozens, not hundreds, but thousands. A storm of black steel that blotted out the light of the star. The void erupted. Alien ships fought with everything left. Plasma storms, missile swarms, energy, cannons. The sky burned with desperate light, but the humans moved like shadows. Their beams carved, their shields held, their formations perfect. It was not a battle. It was a reminder. Ryler stood on his bridge. His crew fought bravely, but he knew the truth. This was not the end of humans. This was the end of the galaxy that once thought itself safe. The humans pressed closer, but again they did not slaughter all. They broke fleets, shattered weapons, left survivors. They wanted witnesses. They wanted the story to spread. And when silence fell at last, when the fires died and the wrecks drifted, the human commander spoke again. This is only the beginning. Those words echoed across the stars. A promise heavier than war. Ryler listened, his heart heavy. He had hated the idea of kneeling, but now he understood. This was not about kneeling, not about burning. It was about remembering. The humans wanted every race to carry the truth of what they had done and what they could do again. On distant worlds, some bowed, some resisted, some prayed, but none could deny it. The legends had returned. In the silence of his cabin, Ryler whispered to himself, they were never myths. They were waiting, watching, preparing, and now they will rule the stars. And somewhere deep in the darkness, aboard the flagship of the human fleet, the commander studied a star map. Millions of systems lit up before him, each a world once touched by betrayal, each a name remembered. He raised his hand, pointing to the next target. His words were simple, heavy as stone. We begin again. The galaxy had thought humans were gone. The galaxy had thought humans were legend, but legends never die. Legends return, and this time they had come not as prey, not as memory, but as rulers, the return of legends.